Nothing, Jimin replied. He laid on his place and covered himself with duvet. Tell me, kid, why are you crying? Yoongi asked worriedly. Jimin didn't reply. Yoongi sighed and spoke again. Jimin, kiddo. Tell me, Yoongi spoke softly. Jimin looked at him and said, Let me please sleep, sensei, Jimin said in a pleading tone. All right, sleep, Yoongi said. Jimin hummed and took blanket upon himself and closed his eyes. But his tears were continuously falling. Maybe he's sad because he was thinking about his parents, Yoongi thought. He also his close his eye and tries to sleep. Meanwhile, Jimin was crying his heart out while putting his hand on his mouth. He was feeling bad. He don't know why, but he was feeling sad. He wants someone beside him who can hug him. Not someone but Taeyoung. He is close to Taeyoung. Taeyoung is the one who mostly comforted him.
Now he was missing Taehyung to the core. He wanted him beside, but unfortunately now he can't do anything except of calming himself.
It's not like that I love sensei, Jimin thought. Why the hell am I even crying? Jimin thought.
I don't love him. He don't love me. Why am I crying? Jimin thought. He harshly whipped his tears, but no use. It replaces with new ones.
Why the hell it's affecting me? Jimin thought. Why the hell I even care when he said it was accident? Jimin thought. You need to calm down, Jimin. You fucking don't love him, Jimin thought. Jimin, are you sleeping, kid? Yoongi asked. Indeed, he was worried for Jimin. He was thinking why Jimin was crying, without even knowing the fact that Jimin is crying because of him and his so-called word mistake. Jimin, a baby, listen, Yoongi said. He didn't reply when he called Jimin as baby. Sensei, let me sleep, Jimin spoke. Listening to his voice, anyone can say he's crying. You're crying continuously, kiddo, Yoongi said worriedly. I'm not, Jimin said.
What's wrong? At least tell me. Do you miss your parents? Yoongi asked. Even thought he was hesitate to ask this, but he have to ask.
Let me sleep, sensei, Jimin said. Yoongi didn't know what to do. No. Jimin, just for once, turn to my side and look at me, Yoongi said. Jimin sighed, knowing Yoongi won't stop until he'll listen to him. He turned towards Yoongi and his heart skipped a beat when Yoongi pulled him in his arms. As sensei, Jimin spoke, don't speak. I know you're missing your parents. You can cry, Yoongi said. Jimin didn't said anything and hugged Yoongi tightly. He starts to cry his heart out in Yoongi's chest. How miserable my state is. I'm crying in the chest of a person who hurted me, Jimin thought. Yoongi was just patting his head and caressing his back silently. After half hour, Jimin slept in Yoongi's arms. Jimin, kid, Yoongi spoke softly. He didn't got any reply indicating that Jimin slept already. He tried to break the hug, but Jimin whined, S-H-H-H-H. Sleep, Yoongi said, while patting his head. Jimin hugged him more tightly and spoke in his sleep, Hobi Hyung. Don't leave me. I love you, Jimin spoke in his sleep. Hobi Hyung, who is Hobi? Maybe he's one of the brother, Yoongi said. He looked at Jimin, who was sleeping peacefully in his embrace. Who hurted you, this bad kid? Yoongi said. He spoke without even knowing he is cause of him in pain. I hope you'll become childish again in the morning, Yoongi said. He hugged Jimin close to his chest and closed his eyes. Soon he also slept while holding Jimin tightly. Jimin was also hugging him tightly like his life depends on Yoongi. Meanwhile, with Chan Beck, they both were laying while facing each other. Chanyeol Hyung Becky and say Chanyeol just hummed. What's wrong? Is anything bothering you? Baekhyun asked. Nothing's wrong, Chanyeol replied. Are you sad because Jimin didn't got to stay with you? Baekhyun scared. Chanyeol suddenly opened his eyes and spoke. You're close to Jimin, right? Chanyeol asked. Why yes. Why Hyung? Baekhyun asked. Can you help me to get Jimin please? Chanyeol said. To get Jimin? Baekhyun asked. Yes, Beck. I love him. Please help me, Chanyeol said in a pleading tone. Baekhyun felt his heart was aching. How can I? Baekhyun asked. Although he was feeling sad, but still he asked. You're close to him. Tell him to meet me sometimes, Chanyeol said. I'll try, Baekhyun said. Thank you, Becky. Chanyeol said. You're welcome, Baekhyun said. He covered himself with the blanket and his tears started to fall. It's not a lie that Baekhyun have a huge crush on Chanyeol. Chanyeol also closed his eyes and slept. Time skips to the next day. In Yoonmin's tent. Yungi was the first one to woke up. He woke up and saw Jimin sleeping peacefully beside him. How cute he is, Yungi said while adoring Jimin. Yungi then got up and opened their tent zip. As sun rays fall on Jimin's face, he whined and woke up. Hyungi, close the window, Jimin spoke while rubbing his eye. Yungi approached him and held his hands. Don't rub, kiddo. Your eyes will hurt later, Yungi spoke softly. Jimin opened his eye fully and looked at Yungi. He was in sleep, so he hugged Yungi. Yungi flinched at his sudden action, but then realized that Jimin is in sleep.
Kiddo woke up. See, everyone is awake out there, Yoongi said while patting his head. I'm sleepy. Let me sleep, Jimin said in a sleepy tone.
We've to go back at noon. Let's enjoy now. Get up, Yungi said. Jimin opened his eyes and broke the hug. As soon as he had eye contact with Yungi, he remembered everything happened last night. He remembered how he cried, and Yungi made him sleep in his embrace. His cheeks turned red remembering it. Hey kid, why are you turning red? Are you okay? Yungi asked worriedly. I'm okay, sensei, Jimin replied. Then why are you turning red? Yungi asked. It's hot here. That's why, Jimin replied. Hot. It's winter, Jimin, Yungi said, but I feel hot. Let's go, Jimin said. Yes, but are you all right now? You were crying last night, Yungi said. Suddenly, Jimin remembered his reason of crying last night. He looked at Yungi and his mind starts to spoke. Mistake. It was just a mistake, his brain spoke. Jimin, you all right? Yungi asked. Why yes. I'm fine, Jimin replied, but this time a little coldly. He got up and went out without waiting for Yungi's reply. What's wrong with him? Yungi spoke to himself. Is he on periods? But he's a boy, then why sudden mood swings? Yungi said, wait, is he pregnant? What the hell, I'm thinking, Yungi said. He ignored his negative thoughts and went out. As soon as Jimin came out, Baekhyun reached him. Hey Jimin. Are you all right? Baekhyun asked. Yes, what can happen to me? Jimin asked. Nothing. I was just worried for you, Baekhyun said. But why? It's not like that, sensei eat me at night, Jimin said. Oh ho, eat you, Baekhyun said. Bitch, control your dirty mind. I didn't mean that, eat, Jimin said with a done face. Haha, sorry, Baekhyun said. Did that dork did something to you? Jimin asked. Dork? Who? Baekhyun asked. That Chanyeol, Jimin said. Suddenly Baekhyun replied what Jimin said. Oh no, he did nothing. He's actually a good guy, Baekhyun said. Good guy, my foot. I hate him, Jimin said. Let's go, Baekhyun said. Where? Jimin said. To have our breakfast, Baekhyun said. Where we have to go for breakfast? Jimin asked. It's a small restaurant nearby. Young sensei told me to come with Min sensei and you because you both were sleeping, Baekhyun said. To have our breakfast, Baekhyun said. Where we have to go for breakfast? Jimin asked. They all went to that small restaurant. In the restaurant. Let's go and sit there, Baekhyun said. He forcefully took Jimin to the table where Chanyeol was sitting. You guys are here. Good morning, Jimin, Chanyeol said. Jimin just hummed. Jimin was angry because he have to sit with this dork when he don't wanna. He hurriedly finished his breakfast and got up. Where are you going? Baekhyun asked. Nowhere. I'm just roaming around, Jimin said. Okay, Baekhyun said. He got up and went from there.
He didn't went much far. He know Baekhyun never force him, but he force him today too. Sit with Chanyeol. He was feeling something is fishy.
Thank you so much, Baekhyun. You did something at least. You took him near me. That's enough, Chanyeol said. You're welcome, Hyung, Baekhyun replied. While looking down on his lap, Jimin listened everything while standing behind. So this dork forced Becky. Now see what I'll do, Jimin said. To be continue. Any guess what Jimin will do?